So Abram left Egypt and went back to the Negev, he and his wife and everything he owned, and Lot still with him. By now Abram was very rich, loaded with cattle and silver and gold. He moved on from the Negev, camping along the way, to Bethel, the place he had first set up his tent between Bethel and Ai and built his first altar. Abram prayed there to God. Lot, who was traveling with Abram, was also rich in sheep and cattle and tents. But the land couldn't support both of them, they had too many possessions. They couldn't both live there. Quarrels broke out between Abram's shepherds and Lot's shepherds. The Canaanites and Perizzites were also living on the land at the time. Abram said to Lot, "Let's not have fighting between us, between your shepherds and my shepherds. After all, we're family. Look around. Isn't there plenty of land out there? Let's separate. If you go left, I'll go right, if you go right, I'll go left." Lot looked. He saw the whole plain of the Jordan spread out, well watered. This was before God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, like God's garden, like Egypt, and stretching all the way to Zoar. Lot took the whole plain of the Jordan. Lot set out to the east. That's how they came to part company, uncle and nephew. Abram settled in Canaan, Lot settled in the cities of the plain and pitched his tent near Sodom. The people of Sodom were evil, flagrant sinners against God. After Lot separated from him, God said to Abram, "Open your eyes, look around. Look north, south, east, and west. Everything you see, the whole land spread out before you, I will give to you and your children forever. I'll make your descendants like dust, counting your descendants will be as impossible as counting the dust of the earth. So, on your feet, get moving. Walk through the country, its length and breadth, I'm giving it all to you." Abram moved his tent. He went and settled by the oaks of Mamre in Hebron. There he built an altar to God. Then this, Amraphel king of Shinar, Arioch king of Elasar, Kedorlaomer king of Elam, and Tidal king of Goyim went off to war to fight Bera king of Sodom, Birsha king of Gomorrah, Shinab king of Admah, Shem-eber king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is, Zor. This second group of kings, the attacked, came together at the valley of Siddim, that is, the Salt Sea. They had been under the thumb of Kedorlaomer for 12 years. In the 13th year, they revolted. In the 14th year, Kedorlaomer and the kings allied with him set out and defeated the Rephaim in Ashtaroth Karnaim, the Zuzim in Ham, the Emim in Shaveh Kiriathaim, and the Horites in their hill country of Seir as far as El Paran on the far edge of the desert. On their way back they stopped at En Mishpat, that is, Kadesh, and conquered the whole region of the Amalekites as well as that of the Amorites who lived in Hazazon Tamar. That's when the king of Sodom marched out with the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is, Zor. They drew up in battle formation against their enemies in the valley of Siddim, against Kedorlaomer king of Elam, Tidal king of Goyim, Amraphel king of Shinar, and Arioch king of Elasar, 4 kings against 5. The valley of Siddim was full of tar pits. When the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, they fell into the tar pits, but the rest escaped into the mountains. The 4 kings captured all the possessions of Sodom and Gomorrah, all their food and equipment, and went on their way. They captured Lot, Abram's nephew who was living in Sodom at the time, taking everything he owned with them. A fugitive came and reported to Abram the Hebrew. Abram was living at the oaks of Mamre the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and Aner. They were allies of Abram. When Abram heard that his nephew had been taken prisoner, he lined up his servants, all of them born in his household, there were 318 of them, and chased after the captors all the way to Dan. Abram and his men split into small groups and attacked by night. They chased them as far as Hobah, just north of Damascus. They recovered all the plunder along with nephew Lot and his possessions, including the women and the people. After Abram returned from defeating Kedorlaomer and his allied kings, the king of Sodom came out to greet him in the valley of Shaveh, the king's valley. Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine, he was priest of the high God, and blessed him, "Blessed be Abram by the high God, creator of heaven and earth. And blessed be the high God, who handed your enemies over to you." Abram gave him 1/10 of all the recovered plunder. The king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me back the people but keep all the plunder for yourself." But Abram told the king of Sodom, "I swear to God, the high God, creator of heaven and earth, this solemn oath, that I'll take nothing from you, not so much as a thread or a shoestring. I'm not going to have you go around saying, I made Abram rich. Nothing for me other than what the young men ate and the share of the men who went with me, on Eshcol, and Mamre, there to get their share of the plunder. After all these things, this word of God came to Abram in a vision, "Don't be afraid, Abram. I'm your shield. Your reward will be grand." Abram said, "God, Master, what use are your gifts as long as I'm childless and Eliezer of Damascus is going to inherit everything?" Abram continued, "See, you've given me no children, and now a mere house servant is going to get it all." Then God's message came, "Don't worry, he won't be your heir, a son from your body will be your heir." Then he took him outside and said, "Look at the sky. Count the stars. Can you do it? Count your descendants. You're going to have a big family, Abram." And he believed God. God declared him set right with God. God continued, "I'm the same God who brought you from Ur of the Chaldees and gave you this land to own." Abram said, "Master God, how am I to know this, that it will all be mine?" God said, "Bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, and a dove and a young pigeon." He brought all these animals to him, split them down the middle, and laid the halves opposite each other. But he didn't split the birds. Vultures swooped down on the carcasses, but Abram scared them off. As the sun went down, a deep sleep overcame Abram, and then a sense of dread, dark and heavy. God said to Abram, "Know this, your descendants will live as outsiders in a land not theirs, they'll be enslaved and beaten down for 400 years. Then I'll punish their slave masters, your offspring will march out of there loaded with plunder. But not you, you'll have a long and full life and die a good and peaceful death. Not until the 4th generation will your descendants return here. Sin is still a thriving business among the Amorites." When the sun was down and it was dark, a smoking firepot and a flaming torch moved between the split carcasses. That's when God made a covenant with Abram, "I'm giving this land to your children, from the Nile River in Egypt to the river Euphrates in Assyria, the country of the Kenites, Kenizzites, Cadmonites, Hittites, Perizzites, Rephaim, Amorites, Canaanites, Girgashites, and Jebusites."